Trying to see if we had any to thank.
You.
Don't thank me. That's silly.
I haven't seen
Trying to
anybody
see
else.
if we had
Let
any
me
to
double check
thank.
it right now. Let's see here. Let me pull that up. Okay. And if you once you tweet it, let me know, and then I'll put it
I'm
on
gonna
our.
tweet it on mine.
Okay.
If you want to tweet it on ours, and then I'll tweet it on my
Mm-hmm.
Facebook.
It's one of the reasons I follow you. Okay. Log out because I had to do
Tweet
that on the laptop on
on
the.
Facebook.
Where is it? Why does it not show up? I know we're following you. Mm, okay, let me do this. Twitter. See if I can do two at once. Log out. Oh, there we
I should smile more. I'm bad at that.
go. Try it this way then. All right. So, have you been playing with your deck,
What deck?
your podcast deck?
Oh, it's Stream Deck. Yeah. And I've got it so I can push a button and bumpers go in, but they go to the stream, but they're not going to the Discord, so whoever is with me can't hear it yet. I gotta fix that part. But I do have it so I can do live bumpers.
That would be cool.
I have to get ours in, but we don't have any. Except I'll make one out of that song.
Okay.
Then we gotta figure out where we need to post that it's okay to use it so that we don't get dinged.
Well, I have his permission written, so
You should send me that. So I have it to
okay.
submit. I'm putting our stuff on SoundCloud. I have 2 out of 3 already up there. So that I have something to, like, once it's there, getting the RSS feed going is going to be easier. So,
Okay.
and I just shrunk the third one so I can stick that up. And then when the RSS goes, everything will go up at once. But it'll be available on SoundCloud, like, now, in the next couple days. I got so much stuff. Like, after this, I'm making a friend birthday present that I want to give him tonight after he gets off of work, because I'm hopefully going to SuperCon tomorrow.
Ooh, with SuperCon.
It's in Raleigh. It's a big nerd con. And, like,
Okay.
Tennant's gonna be there, and, like, a whole bridge cast worth of Star Trek people and stuff. But I'm just going for Friday because it's cheap and it's what they have tickets left for, and somebody else is gonna drive, so I can afford to go for $20. Myself.
Tennant's going to be there. Oh,
I
he's my
know.
second. He's my second favorite Doctor.
I was like, oh, I don't want to go. I save the money. I got all this other stuff I gotta do. It's not payday for a few days. And then I was like, and Rob was like, I don't want to go. Go ahead. And I was, no, no, no. And then I was driving today, and I was like, oh wait, Tennant's gonna be at this. Like, just for the off chance I might see him in person, I was like, I gotta go. And I think the
Yeah.
Node wasn't gonna go unless I went with him, so it's the least I could do. Is keep him company.
Yeah. So no, it's just you right now, but we'll keep pitching. All right. So let's get this started. All right. Um, Abraham had just been told by God that he was planning to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah for the wickedness that he has heard, an outcry against the two cities. Abraham asked if he would take the righteous with the wicked and beg God to spare the cities, even if 10 righteous lived there. As we know, the cities were destroyed. But why? Let's talk about the gay community and the Bible.
Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast to reclaim faith in the context of political discussion. Today we'll be discussing misuses of the text in the Bible and the gay community. Well, properly the LGBTQIA+ community. I'm 9 of 12. You can follow me on Twitter or Twitch at 9 of 12. That's NINEOF12.
And I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on Twitter at SEPHIROTHII. That's Sephiroth II on Twitter.
And you can follow the show at Heresy and Hears 1.
And we have a Patreon. It is www.patreon.com/Heresy and Hearsay. A simple $2 a month can help us, this humble podcast, webcast, keep going. So it looks like we got a lot to unpack. First off, what I'd like us to do is to take a moment and first talk about the Bible side and where this, and then we're going to talk about this cultural side and the importance of that. First off, I want you to understand that there is only 5 times that the Bible brings up homosexuality. Leviticus 18:20, and again in chapter 20, verse 13. And of course, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, and then you've got Romans 26 and 27, and 1 Corinthians. That's the proper way to say it, Mr. President. 1 Corinthians 6, 9 through 11. So let's start with the Old Testament. First off, let's talk about Leviticus.
Mentioning Leviticus gives me chills.
No, I understand. Leviticus is an interesting, because Leviticus and Deuteronomy are like the other, what is the term I want to use, is the other laws. We know of the, especially as Christians, but in communities in general, we know the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, things like that. But Deuteronomy and Leviticus are all the other laws where you hear about, they're not, that Jewish people aren't supposed to eat pork, they aren't supposed to eat shellfish, their dietary habits, their clothing habits, their work habits, things like that. That's where all the other laws come in. So the 2 verses, and I'll read chapter 18 first, and then I'll read chapter 20 second. You shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. And this is chapter 20, verse 13. If you lie with a male as you with a woman, both have committed an abomination, and they shall be, their blood is upon them. Now, that interpretation or that reading sounds like, oh, well, homosexuality is wrong because you shouldn't lay with the men, and it doesn't mention women at all, so lesbians are the chosen people.
It's an interesting way to look at
it. Well, there has been
only Jewish lesbians.
Only Jewish, yeah. There's been articles that have talked about that in some degree, but what some interpretations is not so much that it's man lying with a man, because you have to look at the translations from ancient Hebrew and ancient Arabic to English and other countries and other languages, Greek first and Latin second, and then English. Translation has changed the meaning. There is new scholarship that has been discovered, and new scholarship that's been talked about, that basically states that it's not so much man laying with man in as far as a relationship sense, but as in you're laying with a priest of a different religion or a different cult, because there were multiple cults that was part of their practice, is that you were to have sexual relations with the other members of the belief system or with the priests, and that would make sure that that God wasn't angry at you or brought you closer to that God if you were laying with that individual priest. So that is what a lot of, now that we're getting the scholarship and we're understanding translations a lot better, those two verses are less about homosexuality and more about being cursed by God because you're worshiping another God, because you're doing it in that circumstance of a worship system. And
that seems to me to make, it's true. This is like provable that these translations, that these other words existed, and it fits in the context of Christian writings. I mean, when you look at the Ten Commandments, and it starts with "Thou shalt have no other god before me," and now that we know they had these other words. Now, my question for you: do you think this was intentional? In English, for instance, like we've got male and man, right, to designate, and woman to designate people. But in other languages, they had more words that had more subtle meanings, referred to different practices they engaged in, their station in life, and that's where these mistranslations happen. Do you think they were trying to simplify, or that we just don't have the words? And I mean, why would you add more words? I mean, they could have added a few words to clarify, but they didn't. I mean, it reminds me of like Second Amendment arguments, but do you think it was intentional? Because, I mean, the church certainly has tried to direct morality. It's part of their job.
I think, especially if you look at last century BC and first century AD, the Jewish traditions especially started using it more as a condemnation towards homosexuality versus what it originally was, and the early Christian church picked up on that, because you have to look at the context.
Of super early politics, where of course they were against the Greeks, who had many common practices of homosexuality.
Yeah, and also not just homosexuality, but also worshiping gods and goddesses, and also because Greek, even in the height of the Roman era, Greek was a very what was still spoken through most of the civilized, quote unquote, civilized world at that time. As far as what we consider the Fertile Crescent and where the birthplace of civilization is. And you also have to remember at that time you're starting to see the two separations of the East and Western Roman Empire. So if there was, and seeing the Jewish settlements and the Jewish individuals in Jerusalem were ruled by the Romans, while the Jewish sect that was in Alexandria was ruled by the Greeks at the time, you can see where there was this kind of fight for that religion as well, influence as well, if you look at the context. So it seems that, because the Romans, as far as the when I say Romans, I mean Italian Romans versus the ones in the Eastern, where the Eastern Orthodox formed and everything. They saw themselves as very masculine and very manly, and they saw the Greek Romans as very effeminate and very, not very warlike, not very able to hold themselves in a fight. And because of that, in a lot of respects, they are, there was always this little bit of tiff back and forth between them. And that carried over even into the religious side of their arguments. So it is quite possible that the Roman side was definitely trying make it where homosexuality was a sin, because that was something that the Greeks were more in common with. Yeah, I think it was very intentional.
Interesting. Ancient politics.
I mean, you have to look at context no matter where you are for any of it. I mean, the Catholic tradition typically when they read the Bible in mass, they typically read chapters at a time. I know that when I was in classes and stuff, we didn't just read a verse or two. That's a very common practice in especially Baptist, I know, but and several different kind of Protestant outbreakings is they'll only read a couple of verses and then spend the rest of the time talking about whatever message they wanted to talk about, and they cherry pick. The Catholic tradition is very more they read like whole swaths of chapters at a time.
Well, I don't know that I agree with that, having grown up Catholic. We have readings at different times of year. We read different chapters of the Bible that have to do with the story that they are unfolding. However, actually reading, for instance, the same accounts from different Gospels doesn't happen in study. It just doesn't. That's not how. And I taught church school, and it's not the kind of examination we did. And most of what you're exposed to is whatever's in church school, and then the readings at Mass. And I started reading at Mass in first grade, and it wasn't until I was about 14 or 15 years old, and I started actually on my own reading the entirety of the text of the Bible. Boy, there was a lot of stuff I had never been exposed to.
And it could be that there's been a shift since the Second Council, and it takes time for these kind of things to happen. But after the Second Vatican Council, I think there has been a shift in scholarship, especially, and that may be where we, my classroom experiences and stuff, where we would read huge swaths of text in class and discuss the entire text. So I think
experience is definitely different in that respect than the normal everyday, churchgoers. But it's interesting because we're discussing the language of things, that one of the things that prompted me to go ahead and start reading the whole book was the church got a new version. Like the New American Bible, and I'm reading it, and I had been reading, bits and pieces of it for years and years and years, and there were language changes that were like so contemporized that it felt like it meant something different to me. And so I was like, So I read it cover to cover, and I believe that was the New American Bible. It had a red cover with the white cross. And then I went back and I read the King James. And then I went and read, I don't remember what the third one, a different one I read. But it was interesting, the changes, discovering that there were books that were completely omitted in some versions.
Oh, I mean, there's when I was first taking courses and stuff like that, we had to take a kind of a general course and theology and a general course and Bible. And one of the things that we were doing was we were reading through the Old Testament. There is, in the book of Daniel, there's first off 2 whole chapters in the or in the Protestant Bible that the Catholic Church has that is completely omitted in the Protestant Bible. 2 whole chapters, and there is I want to say
like a chapter within a book.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the book of Daniel, there are 2 chapters missing in the King James and then the NIV and stuff like that. It's chapter 13 and 14, because I think that's right, because it stops with, there are 2 more things that Daniel does. First off, he fights he shows that the God is a fake God. By showing that the priests have been basically secretly has a secret way into the temple and takes the food away that is left for the God at that time, and he tricks them into revealing that it's just people taking it, and then he's thrown in the lion's den a second time in the Catholic Bible, and I'm going, I don't remember any of this in my Bible, and so. And then,
the whole book of Tobit
yeah,
is only in, I think, King James.
No,
and it's like one of my favorite books.
It's actually in the Catholic Bible that Tobit's in.
Okay, sorry, the German Roman Catholic Church I attended earliest in my youth used the King James. So,
But the New American Standard has Tobit. It also has both of the Maccabees in it, which is not in the King James.
I once, when I questioned a pastor about Tobit being omitted, was told that it was too similar to Job, so they just didn't need it. The look on your face is priceless.
Because there's this verse in the back of I think it's in, pretty sure it is. It's like, nothing shall be changed or omitted from this Bible. And I think you're omitting something from the Bible if you don't think you need it. I'm going, nah. But the Bible has changed over the millennia because of the fact that there's been different schools of thought on the Bible and stuff. There wasn't a Bible as we know it. The Christian Bible for a long time didn't even want to. There was a group that didn't even want to put in the Old Testament because that God in the Old Testament seemed a bit angry, and it's not the God that they wanted. And
yes, we know. I mean, they certainly have a hardcore history of conversion of all kinds. And I love the joke you put in here because you're right. Catholic Mass is long.
Yeah, I've never been to a Catholic Mass. They keep telling me if I went to a Catholic college, I should at least try. And I'm like, yeah, I don't do bending well. I don't do that whole kneeling, standing up thing well. It's just, as I've gotten older, those hurt. And I'm like, and I would feel bad if there's some gentleman or lady who's like in their 70s who are just up and down like it's nothing. I'm like, I can't do that.
Well, yeah, the aerobics are a thing. I haven't been in so many years, and I'm like, oh man, like at some point I'm gonna I went, I think the last time I went was for someone's wedding, and I was like, oh no, am I gonna remember the moves?
I would like to go to a midnight mass for Christmas. I've always wanted to go there and do that kind of thing, and kind of see that.
See, I haven't gone in so many years, and I went for that wedding, and that was well, without getting too graphic, at least I didn't get struck by lightning, but I decided that I have had all this proper ritual, and I decided to have communion, and I started bleeding on the altar. So there's that. And the time before that I tried to go, I just happened to be in my hometown and the bell was ringing, and it was a church I went to school in that kindergarten and stuff, and I decided to go to Mass. And during the Apostolic Creed, I started to cry, and I just could not say those words anymore about my belief, and it was heartbreaking, and I left. So, yeah.
I mean, everybody has to follow their own path and everything. That being said, speaking of following your own path, when we talk about speaking our own path, they talk about abomination in those two verses. Most Jewish scholars don't believe it can be an abomination. They feel that we are created in God's image. And God's image is not an abomination, so how could we become an abomination because we're created in God's image? We are all loved. We are all respected. We cannot be abominations. Because if you read the rest of those two chapters of Leviticus, I'm sure we're all abominations in one form. I mean, I'm wearing cotton and polyester.
Yep, cotton poly blends. Don't do it, man. You're going to hell.
I've got tattoos.
I think I had shrimp yesterday.
Oh, yeah. And if your children backtalk you, you're supposed to stone them to death. I don't think we do those kind of things anymore.
I'll admit being tempted. I've got a 16-year-old, man. Let me tell you.
Oh, have they started driving yet?
No. Well, Connor does, but...
Are you looking forward to when you start teaching him to drive?
I'm not. He can take a class.
You still have to be in the car when he has his
Nope.
permit.
Well, yeah, but you can skip that if you just wait until you're 18 in
18.
North Carolina. That's what Connor
Yeah.
did. He just skipped that part and took the test when he turned 18.
And that saves you from like losing more of your hair.
Yeah, because they want like 400 hours of driving time or something. Like, no one does that. You're all lying.
I know that when my mom was teaching me how to drive, I know that her hair went more and more white as the weeks went on. My brother is a much better driver than I am. I'll be the first to admit. Especially, I would get distracted and try to run my friends over who are waving at me while I'm driving past them. Yeah,
I don't think that's what they were waving me on for.
probably not at that point. But so yeah, abominations. You can't be an abomination. And honestly, if you look at it,
But
if
can
you
I?
step-
But can I get a T-shirt? Sorry, I
if
saw a
you're an
deplorable T-shirt yesterday. I want an abomination T-shirt.
you can definitely get an abomination if they're. I'm not. Oh, I
Sorry.
can't get into that.
Go ahead.
No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
it's okay. That just makes my head hurt. But also, if you step back and you look at it in a anthropological or zoological way, homosexuality happens in nature, not just humans, but there are many other species that have that, and mammals, not just non-mammals, but mammals as well, that have that, have homosexuality in it. And it is again a small percentage, just like with humans, it is a small percentage, but it's still there.
Penguins
So
can't be wrong.
no, and they're so adorable too. But there's been stories of lionesses uh, not having a pack and being on their own, and that way. Now, are they? They're not. In most respects, they're not copulating. I guess is I can't think of a better term for it, but they're not engaged in that an act of sexuality, but they are mated in a much deeper sense than just an act of sexuality. So it's, you have to look at that and go, God wouldn't let that happen unless it was real, unless it's something that he's okay with. And
Oh, I guess that's an interesting point. Like, theoretically, animals don't even have free will. That's just us, right? That's the story. So that
there's
would
been
further justify it being nature
right.
and
That is,
intended by God.
it would. There's also been some interesting thoughts about animals and their places as far as that hierarchy is concerned at this point, that it may not be as cut and dry as we once originally, as man thinks, that other animals may have consciousness at this point, which makes a very interesting argument as well, because they're but yeah, even if we take it as what the established religious point is, which is that animals have no conscience, have no soul, they are, then it is a very natural act if there is homosexuality in animals. And also, if you look at both Romans and First Corinthians, and I'm going to read those just so that we have a kind of a base understanding of them. This is Romans 26 and 27. First, Romans chapter 1. For this cause God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural used into which it was against nature, and likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of women, burned in their lust one towards another, men with men working that were unseemly, receiving in themselves the compensant of their errors, which was met. And I'm sorry I butchered reading that. I'm bad at reading out loud, and I apologize.
I am good at it. If you ever want to hand those off to me, put them in the notes.
I will. From
Lots of
now
practice. Thank you, Catholicism.
on, I will hand them off to you. It's just one of my weaknesses. This is why I don't do beat poetry, because I can't read out loud. But if you step back for a second, and Corinthians, I'm not going to read Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 6, 9 through 11, because it doesn't even mention it. It just says that you shouldn't be fornicators, and you shouldn't, and the people who abuse themselves aren't going to inherit the kingdom of God. And I'm going, that pretty much covers everybody.
Abomination.
But they do say, but he does say, nor effeminate. But the translations has been changed over the years, so it'd be interesting to take a look at some of those translations. Let me take a look here. In fact, while we're looking at that, it's because here when it says effeminate, and that's the King James version, and the new International, it skips right and says men who have sex with men. So again, the translation is very interesting and very different for everybody.
Yeah, and like some of the words that we're discussing have come into question that their translation in those men and men were probably two different words in that sentence that meant particular men.
Right.
And this is being thrown around by the religious right constantly as, look, it's right there. That's the word of God. That's it. Without any discussion, without any history lesson, without any knowledge of linguistics. It's just, stop doing that, right? That's why we're here. We're trying to have discussions that, like, people don't realize when they're throwing that stuff out and they're just repeating what they hear, that there's more knowledge to be had to justify your faith, but don't use your faith to justify ugly behavior against other humans.
Correct. And the thing is, especially with the Romans one, he is less talking about homosexuality and talking more about A, prostitution, and B, religious prostitution, because that was a big practice in Rome, is that the different temples would have religious men and women for ritual sex, but if they were still
man, we should bring back fundraisers like that. I'm for it. Sex positive fundraiser, yes. What? That's what they were doing. You would go to the temple and you would pay for sex with someone representing like your goddess or your god.
Right.
And that's how they upkept the temples. And people would dedicate themselves to that service. It was religious prostitution in particular. They weren't on a street corner. It was a revered position in that society.
I mean, if you look at the story of Medusa, just going back a little bit, if you look at the story of Medusa, she was one of those individuals who was assaulted, and because that was such a sin to be the woman assaulted, not the guy who did the assaulting, but to be the woman. That's why she was turned into a Medusa.
A gorgon.
A gorgon. Yes, that's why it's so. But yeah, it was a very common practice, especially in Greek, but also in Roman times, especially where they would have where you would go, especially they have big festivals too, where you're talking about fundraisers. They would have big festivals, and they would have sex. They would have sex with the different priests and priestesses and stuff like that. And of course, they were also into prostitution, so they would also give money for this thing, and they were not slaves. These were not slaves that were put into these positions, as you said. These were well thought of individuals, because they were serving the gods and goddesses. So So, so what we've done is we've basically said a lot of this is about believing in another god or doing practices toward other. So we come to the one that everybody loves to talk about, which is Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah is, by its definition, not about homosexuality. It never has been. Ezekiel even speaks of it. Ezekiel says, now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. They were haughty and did detestable things before me. Therefore I did away with them, as you have seen. This is the New International. Has nothing to do with homosexuality. How there is homosexuality in there, but it's not the sin. The sin is that they were wanting to attack a group of strangers who seemed to have been beggars, who they were not going to offer hospitality to, and they were also going to attack Lot. He was offering aid to people who were beneath those that were in Sodom and Gomorrah, that were beneath the people who had money, because Sodom was a rich area with that had fertile lands all around it, and so they became extremely prosperous. Where they were located supposedly is also where a trading crossroads, so you would get a lot of trade coming in and stuff. But they grew arrogant. They grew to the point where they believed that the poor were beneath them, and would throw them out and do horrible things to the poor if they showed up. So it has absolutely nothing to do with homosexuality. It has to do with the fact of hospitality, which is completely different. It has the fact that if someone comes to you and asks for you to help you with because they're hungry or whatever, that you should do your best to try to help them. You know, that's what they're saying. That's what this was about. And that it was such a crime. A lot of the problems Israel and the problems Jerusalem had, if you look over the Bible, is less about any other sins than two. One, praying to other gods, and two, which is their lack of support of the poor. I mean, that's what Jesus was all about. Jesus came back to specifically point out to this to those individuals who were in leadership in the Jewish community, and say, hey, these are the poor and these are the sick. Why aren't we doing something about them? Why are you living in these wonderful mansions while these people are starving to death and these people are dying? So, I mean, that's why Jesus originally came back, was to point that out, that we were supposed to take care of the poor. Sodom was kind of like the first real story of God not being happy with people not taking care of the poor and the sick. So we've had 5 places in the Bible that discusses the fact that there's homosexuality somewhere. And all 5 of them have nothing to do with homosexuality of itself. It's either practicing other religions, prostitution, or not taking care of those who are sick, or those who are poor. So how did we get to this point? How did we get to where homosexuality has gotten to the point where it is such a stigmatism, where people are allowed to not cakes to wedding couples, and are considered heroes for doing something that 60 years ago was considered an act, was considered against the civil rights of an individual, because you refused to service someone who was of a different skin color. So now it's because you don't believe that they should get married, so you can discriminate against them.
Right. That's like, people don't look at that aspect of it. It's It is a civil rights issue. Like, but you refuse, businesses should have the right to refuse service to anyone. Well, the line has to be drawn somewhere.
Hmm.
I mean, gender identity in bathrooms in North Carolina, we already have that mess to contend with. That's horrifying.
And let's talk about that. We both live in North Carolina right now, and when that happened, first off, we North Carolina lost a lot of businesses, a lot of business and a lot of money because we were stupid, and that law is still technically on the books. It's supposed to go away next year, I think it is. It's supposed to be. I think it's like a 2-year extension, and then it's supposed to disappear. The NBA All-Stars were supposed to have their game here in Charlotte, and they pulled out. We lost business with other companies as well. I honestly think that's one of the reasons Amazon wouldn't do business here in Charlotte originally. I know they're in Raleigh, but originally, they weren't even considering North Carolina at all. And I think that's also one of the reasons why the RNC is going to come to North Carolina, is because we have, so I don't even want to think about that. That's 2 more years down the line. Let's get through the midterms first off. But it's so yeah. I mean, and when you look at the statistics, trans individuals are more likely to be attacked in a restroom than they are to attack someone in a restroom. Trans people, all they want to do is go to the bathroom and then go and wash their hands and then go and do what they're doing. So, I don't, I'll be honest, there has been times where I've been in places where the women's restroom is just slammed. There's like a line of women, and the men's restroom, because we swing in and out and we don't touch anything with our hands, it takes us only a few seconds most of the time to bathroom. The line is typically always shorter, and there are times where I've been with a young lady who, and I'll be like, okay, go to the men's bathroom and I'll watch the door, so that they can use the bathroom, because that's just that's ridiculous. And there are,
hey Mom, what's for?
And then there is, of course, there are certain clubs that I've been to that are gay friendly, that have open bathrooms, that have bathrooms where either a man or a woman, so it doesn't really matter to them, and it doesn't matter to me if I'm a trans man going to the bathroom with me. I don't care. I'm there to go and use the bathroom and go back to whatever I was doing. I don't care what you have. I really don't. I don't understand it. And that's what, and a lot of, in my Catholic studies, because I chose Catholicism as far as where I wanted to get my theology from, is because the Baptists don't see science as true, as at least the Catholics do see evolution as a fact, does see the Big Bang as a fact. It's not, they believe in science. I mean, the Pope is a chemist. He believes in science. He believes that there's global warming. So I figured that would be more of my way to go. They're not liberal by any stretch of the imagination, but they are at least a little more open to science. But they also only believe that there are 2 genders, that there is a man and there's a woman. There is no switching between the two. There's no binary. There's no binary. You were born both mentally and physically in the same gender. And that's not always the case. Not just transgender, but in general. There are times when someone is born with little to no gender whatsoever, or both genders. And that's something that needs to be discussed and looked at.
Absolutely.
But, there, and I will say this, and this may be controversial, but sometimes the community also tends to want to shoot itself in the foot. And this is a topic that both of us has kind of touched on in the past, but I want to bring it up now because I think it's important, because we have to look at we can best help the community as a whole, because the community, when you look at the community has a set of letters. Their current letter set is this, if I am correct. It's LGBTQQIAAP. September, would you like to tell the class what each of those letters? Yeah, P.
What are they sticking pan in there?
They are sticking pan in there, yes.
They shouldn't do that because there's a stupid meme out there right now about that purports they're trying to add pedophile. Oh. But it's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, allies, and pansexual.
Now, first off, I have a question. Let me preface by saying this. I'm a heterosexual male that has taken the Kensington test 3 times. All 3 times has scored a 0. I do not fluctuate. I am as straight as an arrow. So I am not any of those, except for an ally. My question is, what is the difference between queer and the other letters that are...
There's not. In that long acronym, it is designated that queer is the umbrella they all fall under.
Okay.
And I'm going to put the saga link in our notes.
Perfect. See, when I think queer, the first thought is I know that, to me, when I hear that word and it's used toward a person, it's always in a derogatory sense.
But it's a reclaimed word, and it's something, I mean, early in a lot of people coming out as, because it often refers to intersex and trans individuals a little bit more accurately, because I mean we already have the issue where some of these are gender identity and some of these are sexual orientation, and then there are people that fluctuate or are asexual, but they still are kind of part of the community because they have an atypical thing in common under this umbrella. And so queer was kind of reclaimed, especially with the victimization of these people. So it was reclaimed. But I know for the older generation of people in the community, they're often like, it's striking to hear, right? That because they were tortured with it in their youth. But all the, 20-somethings, even reaching toward 30s that I know, are comfortable with it at least. And the youngish ones, like college-age kids, tend to be really, really comfortable with queer as a self-identifying one word they can use.
And I guess I can see that. I remember when Q was originally added to put age on me. I was always told that was questioning. So
yeah, both those things kind of happened really close to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that people got confused about what the Q was for. And then there's still argument about whether to have 2 Qs or sharing a Q is, yeah. I've been having that argument actively as a representative of the LGBTQ Democrats of North Carolina. We added the Q at a meeting a while back and immediately took all this flack online about, well then, who are you designating with the Q, and who's the Q for? And what do you mean we have to share a Q? And it's like, you should come to a meeting. You should show up and do anything else but bitch. And we may have had this discussion beforehand and add more letters, but I hope not. And I had somebody attack me online over I was just trying to exclude people by not adding more letters. And I'm like, really? Because I want us to be spending this 6-hour meeting on fundraising planning, identifying LGBTQ candidates, and getting them the help they need and training them, because I train candidates, instead of spending a 6-hour meeting in the middle of the state that people are driving from all over the state to, arguing about the letters. And we do it every 6 months in these organizations.
I won't say a joke, and if you think it's off, that's fine. I understand, and you. But I've seen less letters in an alphabet soup. It just seems, because when
I understand the important. Okay, I want to go back to the person who was attacking me, because I do feel bad because I got really defensive. But I understand the point of, if you're trying to be inclusive, you have to include everyone. And being that these people have had to hide, we've had to hide for so long, and it's hard to come out and everything else, and you want to respect each of them and give them props, right? Give them the, like, we see you. Mm-hmm. I just think there are more important ways to do it. But I can understand her being defensive, is like, how dare you exclude someone, right?
No, and I understand, and I do, and I understand that. But here's the thing: if you look at the letters we have right now, do you see non-binary in there right now? You know, there are two. You know, my understanding, there are 2 types of asexual individuals out there in the world.
Intersex is supposed to cover that.
Oh, okay.
In my understanding.
And you see, as an ally, or as someone who's trying to I don't want to say convert, but is trying to explain the situation, I have watched people say all those letters, and the individual they're talking to is already tuned out, because I have just spent the last 30 seconds saying a bunch of letters, and you don't know what those letters mean, and then I have to take extra time to explain what
right,
those letters are.
Right, because then they ask, and by the time you get to the end of the explanation, you've lost them for discussing anything important.
Right.
About the topic. So, yeah.
So there is a term that I don't know if it's still being out there trying to gain momentum or not, but there's a term that has been brought up not only on this show, you've also brought it up on your sister show, Geek Grills, and it's called saga. Tell us what that is.
Okay. This came, the original source, as far as I can tell, is from a blog, but it was handed me from someone else, and I try to hand it off whenever possible, because I really, really like it. It's a blog of Vesper, who's a bi-pan, asexual, queer person of color living in Japan. So, they had posted, and along with I'll read a post from someone called A Smart Kid who's on that page. Why we should use saga, which is sexuality and gender acceptance, as the new term for the LGBT communities. It's easy to say. It includes everyone without having 3 billion letters in the acronym. Saga also means a long history of heroic achievement, which is an excellent way to describe the movement, and it sounds hella cool. So, oh, actually, wait a minute, and let me go back, because I misspoke. This is actually... No, Vesper does not get quality. No, she gets the opposite of... They get the opposite of credit for this. I have to find the original source, because this one is saying it's idealistic and unrealistic to do that, and how it's not accepting. So this person has the point of view that the person that attacked me did. So I gotta find the original saga thing, but I like... It must be A Smart Kid, so I'll look it up. But I like the idea of using saga, because then you never have to change it. It is completely inclusive, and having a meaning besides the acronym. I mean, if this could become in common usage, it'll save so much time and actual activism.
Well, and you talk, we talked, we've bounced this off before. How originally it was GLBT, and
Yeah.
then it was switched to LGBT, and now every time someone has to file taxes and stuff like this, it becomes a nightmare because you have to change the name on the tax reforms and stuff like that.
Can you believe some moron on Tumblr said that people would confuse Saga with Sega? So we can't do that.
Okay, that's just
No, that's not going to happen. Yeah, the GBLT got switched because women go last in everything, so we had to put the gays first. Or the lesbians first. So these are the arguments people are having. Meanwhile, these poor organizations in colleges, for instance, that like worked really, really hard to start the organization, start a bank account, get different kinds of documentation and numbers, and either have to put up with being attacked whenever somebody new comes to the college and goes after them because the L isn't first, or spend a whole lot of time and probably money to find new sponsors, because you usually need a professor to, be a sponsor of an active organization, start a new bank account, like basically completely reorganize to switch the letters every time. There's a lot of college organizations that never did. There's still GBLTs out there. And fine, just do the work. There's a lot of work to be done.
There is, and this is one of the things that is being bounced around, is that if Donald Trump gets his new individual, that the gay marriage may go away again. I personally don't see that, because that's just a constitutional nightmare that someone would try that. But I do see that more LGBT.
There are still pending cases, actually, that it could be done with. But they're concentrating, that end of the political spectrum is concentrating more on doing it state by state, dismantling. So
Yeah.
still.
Yeah. It still would be a
It's like their hobby.
Yeah. Well, it's, you have to have a hobby, taking away women's choice, taking away, the right for people to love whoever they want to love, being, overall not very good people, the absolute opposite of what Jesus was. So,
Right.
But
judging. Make sure you do all that judging you're not supposed to do.
Yeah. So, but it's one of those situations where, and that's why I say I feel that sometimes that community is shooting themselves in the foot. Personally, if you were to ask me, A doesn't need to be there. I'm an ally. I'm okay. I don't. There's a person that I follow on Twitter who is a wonderful artist who is also a burlesque dancer, and she posted basically saying that, and I believe this for myself, that pride isn't about me, isn't about a straight person, isn't about the ally. You can support us, you can march in the parades, but it is about having pride about being in that kind of community. Because I'm sorry, as a straight guy, I have plenty of communities I can be a part of. That those who are in the LGBTQ plus, and that's how I want to do it. And if I get flack for it, I apologize. I'm not trying to bring anybody out or exclude anybody, but it's and that even sounds bad, but it's just, instead of saying all the letters, that's how I want to do it for this.
I mean, don't you think we're more at risk of excluding someone when you're trying to remember them all instead of just saying Saga?
Yeah, I am, because I'm sitting there and it's like, no, because I was like, I wrote it out and I checked it, and it's like, that is so far the letters that I'm aware.
Well, and when we were talking about it last week, ironically, of all things, you were like, what do you mean there's another A? And it's ally. It's like you're a letter, you didn't even know you got it.
Yeah, I'm like, and nor do I. Now, I've heard the argument is like, well, also get shat on as well. And it's like, yeah, that's true. But at the end of the day, oh, I hate that term. I'm sorry. When all is said and done, you are not at the same level of problems that another person is. That someone who is actually gay or a lesbian or bisexual is. So, with that being said, I don't think allies should be in that group. And I think honestly at this point, there needs to be the community as a whole discussion and be like, because when you put more letters, you're splintering yourself further and further. And part of the whole thing is that I thought the community was supposed to come together to protect each other, but they're splitting each other off. It's like you told me about the trans individuals in the caucus. You want to relate that story?
Yeah, they want to start their own caucus because they don't feel they can be adequately represented by us, because all the other letters have to do with, and all the other ones in the current construct refer to sexuality rather than gender identification, and they also feel that it's overwhelmingly ruled by gay men. But I mean, that's largely been dependent on who has the time to do the work. And I'm like, what? Hello, I'm right here, and these lesbians over here, and like, what are you even? But they just don't feel they can be adequately represented by the current caucus, so they want to start their own caucus. So that's going to be another hours of meetings having to be approved at a statewide convention before we have yet another caucus fighting for issues that this caucus that we formed, it was unanimously approved years ago by the state convention, busted our ass on HB2 and other issues that were very targeted toward trans individuals, but still, just because we haven't elected enough transgender folks to the board, they feel like they have to have their own caucus. And it's like, well, just like the LGBTQ community is smaller than the general population at these, and especially in the subset of a political forum, even smaller than that is the transgender representation showing up for these meetings. So and we do the best we can to balance our board, but I mean, just because, I don't know, we just didn't elect enough, so they're not adequately represented in starting their own caucus. And I've argued till I'm blue in the face with my friend about it, but she's not coming around. They've got their own caucus starting. And so do small business owners. Oh no, I think they got theirs. And the Democratic Party in general is doing this. They're forming caucuses after caucus. The last convention I went to, they formed like 6 new caucuses or some crap. And now they're trying to pass a bylaw saying, all right, we're done adding caucuses unless, this happens or whatever. And everybody's up in arms about they're just trying to silence us. And it's like, we don't need a left-hand, caucus or a redhead caucus. This is the big tent, and that splintering thing is happening in that community, so no wonder we can't get shit done.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I'm surprised that even a Democratic governor. I was, that was a surprise to me because, and it's not, and I'm not just talking about our state, I'm just talking in general. There's this need, and I understand about the need of community. I get that completely, and I understand that. But when you splinter yourself also so much, like what's going on with the trans, they are, eventually you'll be a caucus of one, and that becomes a problem. That doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, one of the primary activists in that just quit the party. So,
and that's what the Pride parades were originally for, was to say, hey, we are all one big. We should be seen. We need to be represented. The gays, the lesbians, the bisexuals, and I know you've had problems in your own respect because of how you view yourself and how you interpret your sexuality, that other people don't even see you as part of the community as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
That's a constant, like they call it, bisexual invisibility. Um, Although I'm more, I guess, pan is the more new terminology. I just don't even care about plumbing. I've been attracted to transgender people and whatever. And it's not even necessarily sexual. Like, so with, I don't even know. I don't care about tracking my letter, but I've had the saga. I've had to go through this shit. I have like my transgender friends say, "Oh, you're just greedy." You know, like, how is it okay to say that to me?
yeah,
Right? And then the gay community are like, "Oh, you just don't know yet, honey." And like, it was really hard. Like in the early '90s, I started going, into places that were like gay bars or like supposed to be an accepting place. Right? They're like, "Oh, look, there's a place where like it's my people." And it would just be these assumptions about, oh, she's a hag, or you know, you all that you just don't know yet, shit. And it's like, why are we doing that to each other?
yeah, and that's the thing when you start, and that's something that we can discuss a little bit later.
No one's
When
used the
it comes,
Bible against me for it though, because they've already
no,
accepted that we're all going to hell. We're not like, this
no,
is not
that's
something the gay community tends to do.
no, but which is a plus because I'd be like, yeah, I think you're a little sparky, but no, I'm just.
Oh, there are. Actually, there are log cabin Republicans.
I, I don't even want to have that discussion.
Okay,
I
well, you wanted to. This is the topic: misuses of the text in the Bible against the gay community. We should have looked up their website. We could have found all of them.
Oh, you looked up their website? Oh, I should have looked up. How bad is it? Let me go and look.
I don't know. I'm saying we should have. Like, that would have been good homework to have the other side of, you know, um,
I
how
don't
people
think
misusing this shit.
I don't think they really discussed that because how they see themselves is more that they're more financial or physical conservatives. My understanding of log cabin conservatives is that they're more um, they're less that they're more nationalistic. That's
Their front page right now is Second Amendment. So,
yeah. Because God knows that gay people need to protect themselves as well against the other crazy people in their party at this point in their lives. So, but no, that being said, and the truth being told, you know, look at the struggles that are going on, and then you see how they're dividing each other, or how the community is trying to divide itself. It's that whole thing, of a nation divided cannot stand. I know I've messed up that quote horribly from Lincoln, but
a house divided against itself cannot stand, I believe is the
right.
quote.
Thank you very much. And it's so the more divided the more divided the community becomes, the less they're going to get accomplished. The reason they got things accomplished is because everybody got on board at the same time. Everybody was at the pride parades. Everybody was standing. And now that, and here's the thing, and I read an article not too long ago. It's like, yes, gay marriage has been approved, but don't lose sight of that because it's not over yet. You have to keep fighting and not infighting. And I'm afraid, that I think there are agitators that are trying to do that and keep it separated and stuff like that. There are some legitimate concerns, and I understand that some of it's sexuality and some of it is gender equality, and I can understand that. But the tent is broad enough where I believe it can handle both, and it needs to handle both right now, because if you just look at statistics alone, you're not ever going to make a difference, because you're always going to be so much of a
Minority. Yeah.
that you can't make a difference. And I think that is something that needs to be looked at.
Especially because it keeps happening in this country. They keep putting things on the ballots that are like deciding the fate of a minority. And that's just like, it's mathematically very, very difficult to overcome. Stop doing that.
Right. Well, and that's where the courts come into play. The courts are supposed to protect minorities and protect minority rights and everything, because the majority is always going to rule against the minority. It's just how it always is and always will be. Because if a minority gets rights, that means in some people's minds, a lot of people's minds.
We passed the Civil Rights Act. Don't act like it's impossible. The Voting Rights Act, although, they keep overturning bits.
Yeah.
But we still have this government set up in a way that we can amend and add to things. Like we need to add transgender folks to the EEOC, stuff like that.
Right, we do. And we, and so that's what should be focused on, is that everybody should be focusing on. And yes, it's like something we talked about last week about transgender, actresses. They need representation in Hollywood. They also need representation in Congress and everything else. They need representation, because do we have? Is there there's like one openly gay, I think lesbian senator? Is that correct at this point?
I believe so. And there's a very high level justice I saw a movie about not long ago.
Okay.
It's trans and a veteran. I can't remember their name.
But for the most part, we need to put out candidates for representation of the House and the Senate. That needs to be something that needs to happen, because and don't get me wrong, women are much more both of the houses of Congress as well, and that's something else that needs to happen. Different races are in a minority, and that's also because of gerrymandering. And we'll get to that eventually.
Okay.
but
for now,
but for now, we need to try to push these other candidates. I remember a couple of years ago, before Pat McCrory came and destroyed the state of North Carolina for 4 years, as a test run for what Trump is doing to the nation as a whole, that the Democrats were running several different individuals, and there was an openly gay person running for governor on the Democratic ticket, and I voted for him not because he was gay, but because I liked his stance a whole lot better than everybody else. But he didn't have any backing. He didn't have any money. He had wonderful ideas for the state, but if it wasn't for me being proactive and looking up these things, that's what I do, because I'm a political junkie, I wouldn't have voted for him at all, because I wouldn't have known who he was. It would have just been another guy's name on the. And so that's something that needs to happen. We need to support each other as allies. I need to be able to, hey, you've got this candidate, let's boost their voice, let's boost their what they're saying.
I think that's the argument behind adding the A and putting the allies in the acronym, because allies, true allies that are doing the work, right, are putting themselves out there with us to make statements like that and defend them and defend the candidates in public is its own kind of coming out, because you are going to take blowback from that, and it is a risk to your own life and business, or can be, when you're truly active as an ally. Like, that's how ally is defined, not just you can say, well, I'm an ally because I don't, persecute anybody. Like, no, that's not who that A is for.
Right. It's, you have to go out and you have to, put your face to it, and I understand. And that argument was made, and I can conceive and understand that argument. I don't know. I'm about that second A. I'm just like, I'm willing.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. At this point, there's so many letters that it wouldn't matter if there's that second A or not. But I am, I am on board with the saga idea. I will be open in admitting that the saga idea, both as just simplification and as it covers everything, but also because I'm a geek and it just sounds like I'm about to go on an epic quest.
Right?
I mean,
Bonus.
yeah. Yeah, bonus. It's like, epic quest. Where's my foam sword? Oh, wait.
It's your phone. Call voters now. Someday, maybe if I re-enter politics, I'll get up at some big meeting and bring it up and then get stoned. So, by the community. So it'll be great.
Yeah, it'll be wonderful. Yeah. So, I think we should be moving on and ending tonight. We've gotten, and I'll get this for those who are waiting. It will be up later this evening on our YouTube page. We do have a YouTube page. It's youtube.com/Heresy and Hearsay. And also, just as a reminder, we do have, before we get to our carrots and sticks, I do want to mention the fact that we do have a Patreon. And again, that's www.patreon.com, /Hearsay, Heresy and Hearsay. Eventually I'll get our name right.
Someday. Don't say / That's not helping. Just slash. It's just a slash. It's not 1987. Just slash. We're not like using Angel Fire and you have to put, file designations in. Just slash. Sorry, Hannibal drives me crazy with it too. And he actually says / for his Patreon, and it's not a / but I love him.
You do understand I still have an Angel Fire webpage.
Of course you do.
Some technology I just can't give up on. So, let's start with our carrots tonight.
Okay. You didn't put it in my color, but you said you wanted me to take the carrot. So, Muhammad Bazik, talk about somebody who shows the best in us. And this story, I got all choked up. So, he's a foster father that takes in children that will most likely not live through their childhood. He gives love and a family, something these sick children normal get. He basically only takes terminally ill children and fosters them until the end of their lives. So, carrot to you, man. Golden carrot. That's the biggest heart I have heard of in a very long time.
When I was watching, I originally saw this on Now This, or one of those kind of things on the Facebook. It talked about how some of these kids that their parents abandoned them, and these kids don't even have names.
And he's been because they were just abandoned somewhere. He's been doing this for like 20 years. He's had 10 children die in his arms. Mm-hmm. Wow. I don't. I got a big old bleeding heart, but I don't know that I could take it. He has to be incredibly stable mentally.
Yeah,
I'll be so broken.
You're a parent, so you know what that's fear is, and to willingly take that, knowing that that's how the story is going to end. That they're not going to grow up. That they're not going to experience the world, as adults. I'm not a parent, and I'm just like, no bueno. I can't do that. It would kill me. It would just murder me.
I didn't even notice with his name. He's likely Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I think that's another reason why.
That makes it even better, right? Quiet, religious man.
Especially considering the nation we're currently.
Doesn't say what religion. I mean, not necessarily, but...
No, but he would at least... the pictures I saw, it looks like he is Muslim. The beard he has and everything.
Wow, and that's really... Dude.
Yeah.
I can't believe you said that out loud.
No, I'm sorry. It's just... I understand that is just part of their text. I'm
going to start saying that to all the millennial bros with the beards. I'm just going to start asking them if they're Muslim. What's the matter with you? sorry.
It looked like the traditional.
Sure. But he speaks about God a lot, which is...
Mm. And what is our other carrot today?
I'm not... What? You didn't put a note in.
I did. It's right after the story. Do you not see it? About Alex Jones.
Yeah. And no, there's no link. So, but anyway,
okay.
we could do, like, thanks Google, because they banned Alex Jones from streaming for 90 days because of his hate speech.
I do appreciate Google for doing that. I don't have any things up for this, but there are two that I want to talk about real quick. These are both sticks. One is the Freedom Caucus, and what they're trying to do basically is impeach the Assistant Attorney General Rosenstein because basically at the end of the day, and I said it again, and I hate that term, because they want to stop the investigation of the Trump and Russia thing, because the Freedom Caucus is all about Donald Trump, because they're all crazy. I'm sorry, that was judgmental. I apologize. I'm sorry. It's because they're putting politics ahead of the nation. That I can say, because
Ahead of people.
Yeah, ahead of the human race. Yeah, and the other one is our illustrious, fearless leader, Donald Trump. There, a couple of weeks ago in Helsinki, a week ago, I should say, there was a discussion, or Putin and Trump met together, and then they had a joint press conference. Asked by a reporter, the question was, "Did you want Donald Trump to win?" ? Did you in any way assist in helping Donald Trump win ? And the answer from Putin was yes, I wanted him. Or, to be honest, I don't think he was saying that he helped Donald Trump, but he did say yes, because Trump spoke about being more favorable towards Russia, which at that point does say that he probably helped as well. But the official White House transcript of that press conference takes the reporter's questions completely out, which...
It's just unconscionable.
I'm like, I don't even think Hitler thought of that. Just erase the question entirely from history, because that's what they're doing. They're trying to erase anything that says that,
they're doing a lot of other stuff in other departments, like removing stuff from documents quietly. Stick. Yeah,
definite stick. So that's our show. Again, you can follow me at Sethroth SHPHIROTHII on Twitter. You can also follow us at Heresy and Hearsay 1 for the show notes or anything like that. We're going to put those up on the Facebook page. We'll also, not Facebook, I'm sorry. We'll put them up as far as links and stuff. We'll put those up in the YouTube. And we've also got a SoundCloud that's coming in a couple of days, week or so, and we'll put those notes up as well. And how can we
As soon as I can, I'm trying, man. My life is really crazy. Like, I'm wearing like a heart monitor right now. I kid you not.
You're also running 2 podcasts right now. So first off, tell us about what you guys discussed on, just real quick, for a plug on your other podcast. What you guys discuss on Geek Grills?
What did we talk about?
You had Silver on.
Oh, we talked about ethical non-monogamy.
Which will be a topic we'll eventually get to, because that'll be an interesting religious topic as far as that's concerned. So.
Oh boy, we're going to find out if they misinterpreted adultery or I'm in trouble. So I could be found at 9 of 12, it's NINEOF 12 on Twitter, and here on Twitch, and of course, geekgrills.com.
And we want to thank you for listening to us, and hopefully this discourse has helped you in your education, but also helped you when you're facing these kind of questions out in the world. And for that, what do we say at the end of the day?
Email us, call us, and bless your heart.
Thank you very much, and you have a great day, guys.
Okay. I was thinking for Carrot and Stick, by the way. It would be really easy for me to grab some bumpers.
Okay.
That would, it would be short enough if you like the idea that it wouldn't get flagged, to probably get a Bugs Bunny going, "What's up, Doc?" for Carrot. And then for Stick, we could probably just get a like whack, 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 whack. I could probably record when I have a caning thing.
I was, if we're going, actually, do you know the Yosemite Sam quote that is like, Bugs Bunny says, because he's pretending to be Teddy Roosevelt, is like, speak softly and carry a big stick. And then Yosemite Sam says afterwards, I speak loudly and I carry a bigger stick. I kind of like that idea.
If I could get a short enough version that keeps the context, yeah.